All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on our Instagram Live. Today, we are glad that you're here.
Yeah, we're super excited to talk today about what we're calling the religious wilderness, or just the wilderness. A lot of our stuff today is coming from this book, this amazing book called Field Notes for the Wilderness by Sarah Bessey.
It is so good.
So good. If you have not read this, go find it. It's called, the subtitle is Practices for an Evolving Faith. Sarah Bessey is one of our favorite Canadians. We can say that, right?
I think so. Yeah. Certainly on the list.
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah Bessey, not LDS, I don't know what
evangelical of some
part
sort.
of Christianity she's a member of. But the things that she says in the book are so relevant to us, certainly, and to many folks that I think are the sort of people that tune in and follow our accounts and would be watching the Instagram Live. So we're really excited to share this with you.
Yeah. So we wanted to start with a couple quotes from that book. Let's see. Yes. So this first quote kind of explains what the wilderness is and what she means by that. So she says, "You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You aren't required to have all of the answers you seek when you aren't even quite certain of your own questions just yet. You certainly don't need to know where you will end up at the end of this experience. If the city is a metaphor for certainty and belonging, then the wilderness is for our questions and our truth." She continues, "This journey was an invitation to a new path of intimacy and depth, growth and evolution. The wilderness wasn't something for me to fear. God was already here making a way. The wilderness is home to God, even the wilderness inside you. Your life is already a place where God is quite at home." And this part I love. "The wilderness isn't a problem to be solved. It's another altar of intimacy with God." So she's saying that the city is certainty, it's knowing something, it's belonging. The wilderness is our questions, it's the struggle, it's nuance, we could say.
Sure, yeah.
And I love that she points out that the wilderness is not a problem. It's not something we have to solve or rush out of. It's where God is. It's where we find God. So tell me what you like about the wilderness when we're thinking about this as a nuanced place to be. What good have you found, or what good can come out of that space?
Yeah, it's going into the wilderness means leaving something. Not necessarily not leaving the church.
Right.
Is not what I'm talking about. But she talks about how the city is a metaphor for belonging and certainty. And so going into the wilderness means leaving that behind. Again, not the church, but leaving that certainty behind. I've done that. You've done that. Yeah. That's something that we've left behind and found really great things on the other side of that. Certainty is not the only way to be approaching the gospel. And so now approaching the gospel with questions and always seeking and kind of always being on a journey there in the wilderness is a richer experience for me than kind of going through the motions like I did for some decades in the church. And so that's why that's been meaningful to me.
Yeah. And while we're talking, please jump into the comments, share your experiences of what the wilderness has been like for you, or what you're hoping to find in a wilderness, or, any questions about it. We'd love to have some interaction. So feel free to leave a comment. As we were talking about this, trying to come up with what we were going to talk about, I was trying to realize or acknowledge in myself why the wilderness, this place of uncertainty and question, has always been such a scary place in my mind.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it goes back to things that we were taught as children or youth. Maybe not explicitly from church leaders all the time, but definitely from ward leaders, on a more local level, where they are maybe a little more apt to want to control what's going on and maybe control some outcomes. But I did find one talk from President Monson Um,
I'm noticing that it says
Nothing. It says Monson.
Thomas S. Monsoon, which is excellent.
Yes. The thing that he points out here is he talks about the wilderness as being something gross. Like, so he
Something
says,
bad.
he says there are many less active members who wander in the wilderness of wonder and who struggle in the swamp of sin. So there's a lot of things that he's calling out that don't quite sit right with me. So he calls out, this is only something that less active members go through.
Mm-hmm.
That the wilderness of wonder is like, no one knows what's going on. Right?
And it's a bad thing. It's implied that wondering in this case is bad.
And he puts on equal standing a swamp of sin.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so far from what I understand and what I'm experiencing being in this place of nuance and in the wilderness. So again, this is just, something that he was saying in a general conference. I don't know that many people would have heard it necessarily, but I think that we internalize that questions equal sin.
Yep.
And struggle and less active. Those things
That's
all kind of chain together in this.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed in my researching, and tell me if this is something that maybe has been true in your experience, when leaders talked about struggle, it was always something that they want to hurry through. It's never something that is talked about like, let's sit in this, let's figure it out, let's find out what's going on, let's explore. But it's always this like, get through it as fast as you can. There's a quote from Elder Hales, Robert D. Hales, and he talks about these doubts can be resolved if they have an honest desire to know the truth. He says a few things, but they've gone from a simple trusting faith through doubt and conflict into a solid, substantial faith. And so it always like wants to wrap things up with a pretty bow of like, you knew, you struggled, you got back to a stronger faith, done. Mark it off, you're done.
And that quote from Elder Hales is even a little bit more nuanced than I would have said, which is, I think mostly what I've heard or understood in lessons and being taught in the church would be, there might be struggle or doubts or questions, and you just need to climb right back out of that. Mm-hmm. So not even a go through it, but a pull yourself right back up by the bootstraps and get out of that. So it's not even a through with something greater on the other side, but just get out of it. It's a problem. Yeah.
That's not a place you want to spend your time.
Right. And it's interesting. I mean, Sarah Bessey's book is about the wilderness. And when we talk about the wilderness in the church, now we pretty much only talk about it in a scriptural sense, like Nephi and Lehi and his family going out into the wilderness, other than that President Monson quote that you read. But the wilderness in the scriptures is always bad. Like that's where Nephi breaks his bow and they don't have any food and they left all their money behind in Jerusalem and they're like toiling and struggling through the wilderness. So we think of the wilderness as bad.
Yeah.
Or I certainly did.
That's the idea that comes across. But I think when we actually look into it deeper, the wilderness is where the growth happens.
Yeah.
It's really where the important stuff happens. It's where Lehi and his family learn to trust the Liahona. Mm-hmm. It's where they interact with God and strengthen that faith with God. And actually, I found a really cool scripture. Did I put it on here?
Where is it?
I thought I found a cool scripture. Where did I put it? Anyway, right here. Deuteronomy 8:2-4.
Okay.
So this is Moses' time. And the scripture says, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble you and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commandments. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, and more stuff. But I think that's interesting that God, the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness. And that goes back to Sarah Bessie's quote that God is in the wilderness. This is a place that they are very comfortable and familiar with.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Nice comment from Jenny in the comments here. Interesting that the wilderness is bad, capital B, bad, yet we often commune in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so that's a really interesting dichotomy. You know, we just don't use the term wilderness in this really constructive way, like shows up in this book. And I was trying to, I was looking through General Conference talks. I was trying to figure out what words do get used, and they're all super negative, like you had mentioned.
Yeah.
But it's always talking about being lost or going astray was a huge one.
Yeah.
Being the sheep that has to go be found, and these sorts of things. And so we really lack language, I think, in our church for what does it look like? What is it when you start to have some questions? Your faith doesn't have that certainty that it always did before. We just don't have language. We don't have... The wilderness is not part of our vernacular in that way. And I think that makes it scarier. And it makes it lonelier. Yeah. And so when you do start to have questions and you look around and you go, I've got to be the only one. Because we don't even have a word for this in our gospel language.
For it. Yeah. But then you run into people that or we're never alone in the wilderness. And for me, there has been a lot of beauty and a lot of almost excitement. Whereas I was taught to be afraid of this place, to be afraid of doubts and questions and trying to personalize things and make things more meaningful to me. But it has brought so much more joy. And the people that I've connected with in this place that's probably been one of the best parts. Yeah. It's really been beautiful.
The more I look, the more I see that there are many of us in this spiritual wilderness. Most of us feel like we're alone, but we're not, and we can be in the wilderness together. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. Share a quote with us.
Yeah, I'll do it. I've got more from Sarah Bessie. I've got I've got way more quotes than I could possibly share from Sarah Bessie here. And let me grab the one I wanted to grab here. So she quotes J.R.R. Tolkien, who says, "Not all who wander are lost." Which again, there's that word "lost" again. Yeah. Being in the wilderness does not mean lost. Being in the wilderness means being on a journey. But she says exactly what I just said. She says, "You're not lost. You're right where you belong on this wandering path." And so if this is you, take a moment with that, have a little moment with that. You're not lost. You're right where you belong on this wandering path. And when I read this book, I listened to the audiobook, and the author is reading it, and she speaks so much directly to the reader. I just had an amazing experience with this book because so many times I felt like she was talking to me. Yeah. She says, "You're not lost. You're right where you belong on this wandering path. It might be disorienting. There may be danger, but you're not lost. You're on the right journey. It's just a different path than you were expecting when you were handed a brand of faith and told to cultivate and protect it at all costs. You're becoming someone who is more loving, someone who is healing, who is more acquainted with the fragility and belovedness of us all. The deliverance that's waiting on the other side of the wilderness isn't a tidier, nicer version of you with new and better answers. Your deliverance was always going to be more love."
That's so great.
Yeah, I love that. And this is something that I had to recognize was, once my faith started to, it felt like pieces were breaking off, and things started to change. And I had questions where I didn't have questions before, and I lacked certainty where I had certainty before. And at the time it was like, how do I put this car in reverse, right? How do I go back to where I was? This is what I was talking about earlier about pull yourself right back out. But I kind of think you can't unring that bell. I think once you've had those questions, how many metaphors can I mix in here? You can't put that back in the box, or whatever that is. because the only way out is through, or at least the best way out is through.
If out is even the goal.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And she actually talks about that as well. She says, for some of us, it's hard to accept that your new life is here now. And it's different. It looks different. My faith looks different than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Very, very different in a lot of ways. And especially if you go back 20 years, you go back to, when I was a missionary and a youth and a childhood, it looks very, very different and is made of different stuff. Mm-hmm. But she says, your new life is here now. There isn't a there to go back to, not anymore. And that's what I relate to in that. Mm-hmm. And I'll cut that quote short there, but that's such a meaningful thing. And we've run into so many people online, in person, at events or conferences, mm-hmm. and various things. We go to a lot of events here in Utah because there is such a strong community of like our people, like the people that we can really relate to.
Yeah. I think it's really important to realize, and we've kind of talked about this earlier, that the wilderness is where God is. That's where we can find God. And I think that it's important to remember that our heavenly parents, aren't going to leave us alone in a dark and dreary world, like they're going to be with us because they want us to come back to them. And even me saying that, I'm like, well, I haven't left them, they want us back in their presence. That's what I mean. But I haven't left my heavenly parents, I'm not lost. I haven't stepped away from anything. But they want to help me. And, I found this quote from Catherine Walden, not sure who she is, but okay. I found the quote.
Sounds great.
The quote says, God never abandoned the Israelites when they were in the wilderness. He was a cloud by day, a pillar of fire at night, and dwelt amongst them in his tabernacle. The wilderness experience is never meant to separate you from his presence. You might be going through a dry season. You might feel like God is far away, and you might think he is silent, but the truth is, he is never distant from those who call upon his name. And just change all of those hises to theys. Yeah. I should have done that as I read. But I really like that thought that even wandering, being led, whatever it is, in the wilderness for 40 years, or, whatever story you're going to pick from the Bible or the Book of Mormon, I guess, God was with the people the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really beautiful.
Yeah, there's this idea when this first starts to happen, when you first start to deconstruct your faith a little bit, first start to have questions, it feels very much like it is something that happens to you, mm-hmm. Like from some external force, like it's not something that you have control over. But being in the wilderness is something that's best done deliberately. And maybe you kind of find yourself there not even knowing how you got there. That's a little bit my experience. But now it's something that I can really own. Mm-hmm. And I can say, I have questions about things that don't have satisfactory answers. And other people try to give me answers and they're not the right ones, Yeah. And I can say, actually, that's part of my faith journey. Mm-hmm. And it's still difficult and there's still struggles and that sort of thing, but at least I can own this journey and I can make it a part of who I am, and I can live that out to its fullest.
Yeah. I just really want to emphasize the fact that the wilderness is not a place that we need to rush through. It's not something that we need to fix. It's not something we need to be afraid of and, and want out of. The wilderness is where the growth happens. It's where we learn patience. It's where we learn to rely on our heavenly parents. I love Sue Monk Kidd. She is my favorite author. And I read a book of hers in the last couple of weeks called When the Heart Waits. And I love this quote that she says here. Most of us Christians don't know how to wait in pain. at least not in the contemplative, creative way that opens us to newness and growth. We're told to turn it over to Jesus, and presto, things should be okay. But inside, things usually aren't okay. So on top of everything else, we feel guilty because obviously we didn't really turn our pain over, or else it wouldn't still be with us. Or we decided that God wasn't listening and can't be trusted to deliver on divine promises. How did we ever get the idea that God would supply us on demand with quick fixes, that God is merely a rescuer and not a midwife?
Ooh, that's so good.
I love that imagery so much. Like, how did we get to the thought that we take a problem to God and it gets fixed and we move on and we're done, we learned our lesson and it's over? How did we get to that place instead of sitting and waiting in that pain, like she's talking about, waiting in the question and having God be a midwife to us, working with us, being there to comfort us in the midst of the struggle, instead of just like shooing us out. Here's your lesson. Okay, move on.
When I was a missionary, again, many years ago, I heard this through the grapevine. I didn't experience this for myself, but apparently if you were a missionary in this mission with our mission president, and you and your faith in the restoration was faltering, or you'd run into some anti-material that had affected you in a real negative way or something, what my I had two different mission presidents, but one of them, what he would do apparently was tell you, okay, you need to go read the Joseph Smith history from the Pearl of Great Price, the whole thing, all 70 something verses, every day for a week. And then I guess you would be okay.
You just get fixed.
Like,
there's your Band-Aid.
Yeah, like
on it.
That was the prescription. Take one of these and call me in the morning, sort of a thing. And we do that so much in the church, where
you just need to go to the temple more.
That's it, exactly. Like,
or pray more.
Yeah, are you reading your scriptures? Are you going to the temple? That everything will be okay if you are. And that's absolutely not true. That's not how faith works. You can't go put a Band-Aid on it and have it all of a sudden be better. Once you're in the wilderness, and there's not a Band-Aid that's gonna go on it and be able to fix it.
Well, and this probably speaks to a broader societal problem of not wanting to be in anything uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so maybe it is, a leader's desire to just like get you through it and fix your problem for you, put the Band-Aid on and move you on so they don't have to deal with you anymore, or like you don't have to focus on that problem somehow. But
you want to help as a leader, you want to be able to fix things even though you really can't.
Yeah, but I have a friend that I went on a walk with last week, and she was talking about an old bishop of hers when she was really struggling. She was in the wilderness, really in a hard place, and she would go to this bishop and just cry and cry and cry. And he just listened. He would sit there with her and listen. He was so genuine and kind. And then even a few days later, he would send her a text and be like, here's an article that I think would be good for you. And it always was. It was never patronizing of like, here's a Band-Aid, read this and you'll feel better in the morning. It was always something that actually really helped, which means awesome. He had actually listened.
Right.
He was sitting with her in the wilderness and
great.
Being, sitting around that campfire with her and like holding space for whatever she was dealing with. And in contrast, we have the leaders that say, just go to the temple every week and you'll be fine. And for some people, maybe that works.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a good Band-Aid for some people.
It's been prescribed enough. It must work sometimes.
It must work for someone.
Yeah.
I don't know that would be the answer for me. I don't think that would be the thing that helps me for a number of reasons. But
let me share another quote from Sarah Bessey.
Okay.
That speaks to this. It actually speaks a little bit to that Sue Monk kid quote just a moment ago. She says, we can be desperate for clarity in the wilderness. The world feels upset and scary, overwhelming, tragic even. We will try to force new answers and radical life changes, believing that if we upend our lives, somehow that will make the uncertainty seem less consuming. And then again, like, listen to the tenderness in this next little bit from Sarah Bessey here. This is your time to slow down, my friend. You've been moving very fast for a long time, trying desperately to get all the answers right. It has felt urgent. And yet this is the slower path, a more homemade path, and there are no shortcuts, no rewards for being done first. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. I know you want to, though. Alas, there isn't a fast pass version of the wilderness. There isn't an app for bypassing the deep, slow work of the Spirit in you and through you. That's such a tender and such a soothing thing for me to hear.
Yeah.
To hear that, oh, you're looking around for a quick fix. There's not going to be one, but you're still on the right path. It's a slow path. There's no shortcuts. Yeah. The only way is through. But you're still on the right path, and this is the right direction to be going.
And that speaks to this comment that came in of, he says, I was really struggling with mental health and felt distance from God, so I went to my bishop and asked to work at the temple. That's the, like, desperately doing things, like, help me find all the answers. And the bishop responded, do you really think that'll help? And he says, that was a huge eye-opener for me, and I respect him for making me consider that. That's exactly this. That's a great response from a bishop, to be honest. Yeah.
You know, we talk about bishops get called and they don't have, you know...
skills. Is that where you were going?
Roughly, you know, if we're talking about, you know, the role that they play as like a quasi-therapist or marriage counselor or these sorts of things. And I love that response from a bishop, which is, you know, I don't know the rest of the story, but maybe it was, hey, you know, go talk to somebody that's trained in this and has some background in that. And I love that. So really great comments. If you have other thoughts or questions, please jump in the comments. And man, I just want to go back to that sentence again from that quote. This is your time to slow down, my friend. It's so powerful. When we're trying to do all of the go to the temple frequently and read the scriptures for this many minutes a day and do your ministering and do your family history and like get food storage and like, you know, all of these things. And it's like, hey, you know what? You're going to get more out of this, out of the slow work of the Spirit at this stage in your life.
Yeah. And maybe there's, you know, we have a tendency in the church to be on the hamster wheel of works, you know, to just always be doing things. But I do really love that thought of just slow down. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't even have to get them all right now. You know, we don't need to be in this urgent, have to understand it all, have to have it all mentality, which is so prevalent right now. And so I think that is really beautiful to just take a beat, sit for a minute, live in your questions, sit in the awkwardness and comfortableness, whatever it is, just take a beat and let God work in you.
Yeah. Your faith may look different than it did in the past. You may be in the wilderness right now spiritually, and that's okay. It's a slower path. It's a gentle path. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with others that are on that path as well. And I think the last thing that we can do is look for each other out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And Ann and I are always looking for, I used the term our people before, looking for people who think the way that we do, who understand the world like we do. And it's generally people who are in the wilderness the same way that we are.
Yeah.
And being together and strengthening each other is really important when you can find those people.
Yeah. We'll bring the s'mores. You guys bring the firewood. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll be in the wilderness, and it'll be. I think the community is wonderful.
Yeah,
it is really meaningful.
I think there's way more Latter-day Saints in the wilderness than we really think about and really appreciate, because we don't talk about it at church, and so we're all kind of in our own little tiny mini wilderness. But when we're willing to be vulnerable and willing to talk about these things, then we can find that camaraderie. And that community, even in the wilderness as a Latter-day Saint. Yep.
So reach out to us if you ever want to chat or
for sure
meet up for dinner or whatever. If you're in Utah, we're so open to that.
Yep.
So
awesome.
This has been great. I really loved, once I understood the wilderness as Sarah Bessey explains it, and I've heard other people talk about this a little bit here and there, but once I heard and understood the goodness that can come out of the wilderness, I felt like I could take a breath and like not be so panicked that I'm doing something wrong,
Yeah.
and not be afraid of where I am and what I'm going through right now, but I can connect to my parents, to my heavenly parents, and this is the place to do it.
Yep. Wherever you are, we're there with you. We love you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. I think we're going to wrap it up right there.
Oh, there's a good
a
comment.
Okay. We were going to end, but I just want to point out, I know who made the comment, but maybe I'll spare names.
Any good ways to bring it up in church that allows for conversation and not shame spirals or defensiveness?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. I think you have to do everything with love.
She said sorry.
You're fine. If you are bringing stuff up in order to, I think this goes both ways. If you're bringing it up in order to shame somebody for where they are in a in a more binary belief, more, first stage of life or first stage of faith place, then that's not going to be helpful.
That's what I usually do. It does not work.
From experience, does not work. Now, if it is you that feel like you are getting into shame spirals or defensiveness, I think I always say go with grace. Like, if you have grace for comments that people make that maybe are hard on you or hit you wrong, have grace for where they're at and what they're going through and understanding. And that doesn't mean that what they said is excusable and they get a free pass.
Mm-hmm.
If real harm is done, speak up and say something. And I think helping people have those awkward and uncomfortable conversations will eventually bring us all to better places. But
we've shared this before, which is sometimes if you are disagreeing with something that's being said in the lesson, and you make a comment and say, hey, I actually see it differently. I see it this way.
Yeah.
That makes space for other people. And Anne had shared a story at one point about, she shared a comment, and it kind of like hung there in the room for a moment. But then another woman raised her hand in Relief Society and said, actually, I feel that way too. And somebody else said, I agree with that too.
Women that I never would have expected.
And nobody would have said anything if you hadn't broken the ice and done the hard part, which is to raise your hand and say, you know what, I see this differently.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of how you find your people too, is by, it's hard, but sometimes opening your mouth, it really gets that going.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes is, if you can't be the first person to speak up, be the second.
Oh,
and so if somebody else speaks up with something that you agree with, speak up and be that person that says, I feel the same way or something, because that validates what they're saying and doesn't leave them out in the wilderness by themselves.
Yes, doesn't leave them hanging there.
Yeah. So good
all right.
question.
It was a good question, and I'm glad that it was added.
Yes.
Even if we were about to end, which we will do now. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate you joining. Appreciate the comments and the questions. We will see you next week.
Yep, and check our profiles for the full video if you got on late or missed some of it. It'll be on our profiles.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.